There's many people out there that may lack knowledge, may lack true knowledge. Various and numerous groups and people and individuals may be lacking knowledge and have no idea who they may be. So that leaves a lot of room for error. Why? Because they don't know how their body is operating. They don't know how their brain is operating. They don't know how they're functioning. They don't know if their thoughts are theirs or if their thoughts are something or someone else's. They don't know if their visions are theirs or their visions are someone else's. They don't know this, to be a fact. So how to know yourself so well that you know what is true, what is a fact, and what is false. Everything unknown that realistically pertains to the person does have to be known. How does this? How is this going to be known? Well, the person has to be true. The person being true, everything has to be abundantly known to the person. If the person is true and something is not abundantly known to the person, then that's a problem. That's an issue. Nothing will realistically work out correctly the way something is supposed to work out correctly. So I'm true. There's things that are abundantly known to me, and there's also things that are unknown. How can that be? That leaves a lot of room for error. Okay, a lot of room for mistakes, a lot of room for nonsense, a lot of room for loopholes, a lot of room for problems to persist, to occur, to continue to be manifested, unfortunately. And the manifestation will be a forceful thing. Anything that is a nonsense thing is a forceful act that many people may not realize. Many people may say, "Oh, no, no, look, I'm doing this, and something is not forceful." Is that? Well, something is unseen. You're not realistically understanding something from a cellular quantum level. When you think in terms of a quantum cellular level and look at the totality of what's going on, everything is all tiny things. Everything. And so all of these cellular things that are occurring that people may say, oh, something is unseen. It's not a big deal. There's no force occurring. Yes, there is a force occurring. There's a lot of forces occurring. The forces are wrong. The forces are not the forces that people need to be. Something is not a paper and me doing this, and therefore, something is not a paper and me doing this, and therefore you see a line. No. You know what something realistically is? There's this pen, and then there's this pen. Do you see that? Something is not working. Why? Here. Something is still not working. Look. Look what's going on, though. Look at the paper now. You see the paper? That's a force. Yet you can see this. Yet this is the exact same thing occurring with every single thing that you can't see. Okay? Look at this. Spoon and butter. And look at this. I'm forcing something to be. Instead, realizing that this is possibly not working because there's no ink inside. Maybe I could do this. Maybe if I warm this up, well, I can't say up because I'm not warming up anything. Maybe if I warm this pen, then I'll be able to make this work possibly instead of having to force this. No, it still doesn't work. Hey, I tried. The point is that a lot of things in this life is realistically a forceful act of what is occurring. Yeah, many people, because they don't see something, they say, oh no, nothing is being forced, everything is working correctly. And something is being forced. So what's realistically occurring and happening is the fact that there's literally hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of trillions of forceful things that have occurred. Side effects are still present, lingerings are still present. Similar to the human body, you know how I'm conditioned and brainwashed and hypnotized and in states of amnesia? Well, that's how animals are. That's how people are. That's how aliens are. That's how bugs are. That's how the planet is, you know, and various other things that I didn't mention. Everything realistically is similar to this. What's in is outside. So what's in is also outside in terms of everything healing and everything healing outside thereof. And so this is what people have to understand. This is what people have to know. This is what people have to perceive. This is what people have to start thinking in terms of. Just because you don't see something in terms of something being a forceful thing doesn't equal there's no forceful thing. So there is a forceful thing occurring, and this forceful thing that's occurring all has to do with something that is not making sense. And so what's not making sense? Well, if you do 1 plus 1 equals 2, correct? That's with math. That same idea of math in terms of numbers, 1 plus 1 equaling 2, some people have on the wrong math with 1 plus 2 equaling 71. And so without numbers, there's also the same idea and same purpose and same everything to do with visions, thoughts, words, doings, feelings, food, everything you can imagine all has to do with something similar to something that is realistically not making sense at all. And so how are people going to change something that doesn't make sense to then make sense of something that needs to make sense? In other words, something is a need, yet the need is not being fulfilled correctly. You know what? There's a distraction occurring in this moment of time. I'm going to pause here for a quick, and I'm going to mention something because, oh, I'm just going to mention it here. You know what? I'm just going to mention that here. There's a person, or excuse me, not a person, there's groups of people that think they've gotten me accustomed to what I'm doing in this moment of time. Okay? That's false. I know what I'm doing is relatively correct. However, because of those specific groups and people taking turns in people's lives, to them specifically, doesn't make sense for them to know information at all. Nothing. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because of them. However, those groups, what they're doing is they're trying to make me accustomed to something that is false, that doesn't make sense. In other words, I know that I'm making sense, and I know I'm not making sense for them. However, I'm not making sense for them, and they're trying to make something seem though I'm not making sense for myself or for something else. Okay? So those groups are realistically wrong, because something is true in terms of, let's presume me not mentioning something is true for them, me not mentioning something for them. In other words, those particular groups shouldn't know anything. And why shouldn't those groups know anything? Well, you know what? Because they don't make sense. Okay? And so you may say, okay, well, that's normal. People don't make sense all the time. No, that's not what I believe. That's not what is true. People don't make sense. People make sense all don't make sense all the time. That happens. California weather is always sunny. No, I don't believe that. So with that said, Me not believing that, what I do believe is everything does make sense. How? Well, everything that doesn't make sense has to change and everything makes sense. Until then, when everything makes sense and changes to make sense, what doesn't make sense? Then, the thing that doesn't make sense, when everything changes to make the most sense, what's left behind? What's not making sense? Think about that. I'm not going to always mention everything. Then you know that may be from. I'll give you some hints. Side effects that may be because of lingerings. That may change and make sense also. That may be the nature of something, and then you think, well, that's supposed to make sense too. Why is that not making sense? You know, that's the nature of something. That is not supposed to make sense. Well, then you look at it from a different perspective and everything. Then you realize there's a mix. That's why something mixed also was that didn't make sense either. And there's more to the story that I'm thinking a lot of things. I just don't want to mention everything, to be honest with you. Not to everybody. And something just because it doesn't make sense doesn't equal you don't make sense. You still make sense. That's something that doesn't make sense. That's that thing that doesn't make sense, and for something or someone else may make sense. However, you cannot then steal that and then not make sense of that. You understand? Doesn't make sense. You know. So a lot of people, there's a lot of waking up processes that they must do and realize that a lot, numerous doings and thinkings and sayings and every single thing to do with truth, they're not being the representation of who they are. This earth created people, created beings generally, to be their true nature, to go in the flow of the universe, to go in the flow with others, to go in the flow of everything. Yet, some people are not who they are. There's something or someone else. Is that normal? That you're something you're not supposed to be? Instead of being true, instead of being your true nature, you're something else. Isn't that a violation of who you are? Yeah. If you think about that realistically, that's a violation of who you are. Somebody's beating you in you not being your true nature. You not being your true nature, somebody's beating you. Somebody has made an enemy of you. This is similar to holding on a hot plate or a hot spoon and you're burning. You burn, your finger burn until you drop, then you don't burn anymore. That's similar. If the person is not the way who the person is supposed to be, not true who the person is supposed to be, somebody's telling you that this is true and that's false, and you're being misled. The person is supposed to know true knowledge of self, then somebody telling them what to do, guiding the person, and people taking advice, taking a lesson from something or someone. The person does have to be true, does have to be knowledgeable to understand, to perceive reality correctly, though. Otherwise, somebody's telling you, what to think, what to do, what to believe, and you may be duped, you may be believing all that, and that may have nothing to do with reality versus something that does. And I'm seeing a private vision of somebody. Obviously, they're deciding to show this to me, from my understanding. Except I still don't want to see this. This is part of self-discipline. This is part of self-realization. This is part of self-respect. This is part of something that is abnormal of what I'm. I understand the purpose of this. I just don't want a bunch of other people to also be visioning the same thing I'm visioning. It doesn't make sense. Why are they my private life. That has to do with people being in person together, being private. And then the cussing of whatever I heard, obviously those people are wrong. Nothing to do with me. It seems though many things that doesn't make sense. So this is a different topic of discussion. I don't want to go off of topic here. So everything has a potential of changing and being sensed, therefore that's the answer. Change and the answer. Once everything and everyone upon the face of this earth is the answer and changes and is the answer, what are all the things that are the non-answers? And why? Excuse me. Why? Just because something doesn't make sense doesn't equal something is wrong. With a correct perception, correct perceiving of reality, correct understanding of true knowledge and being the answer in all elements, not some, not two, not three, all, then if something doesn't make sense, you understand, hey, you know what? That's normal for that something to not make sense. Versus something that doesn't make sense and something is abnormal for that something to not make sense. To be aware, I don't play with words. When I use the word not, no one in my reality that's playing any form of games, any form of wrong measurements cannot be my reality. That doesn't make sense. Speaking of not making sense. So realistically, what needs to occur is people need to understand, attain knowledge, understand, and not only know something in glimpses, you know, not only know something in one element or two elements or three elements or four elements. In other words, that's still being all over the place. That's still being all over the place. You're not supposed to be all over the place. You're supposed to be where you belong realistically. And so people are all over the place. They're not where they belong. People all over the place, they don't belong where they. You know what? You know what else I'm noticing? Sophisticated subtle manipulations of technology. And remember, whenever this happens, nonsense is trying to always blame true technology. So maybe that's their goal. However, their goal must fail. Why? Because they're false. They know what is true. Anything that is not true, no one's supposed to be believing, or talking about, or thinking. Yet alone, people are believing, thinking, and talking about. Can you imagine? The reality of what people are doing and who's fooling who is hysterical to me. Not really though, it is hysterical in terms of that perception, that element of something being hysterical, and also something is very, very sad. You know, something is very, very sad of what's occurring. The awe, you know, the amazingness that can occur here on this earth with true knowledge and attaining of true knowledge, and the level of nonsense that's occurring here on this earth. So all this stems from lack of knowledge. All this stems from thinking that something is cool. I saw a ring at one point of time. I thought that was cool. The ring can be cool, especially if used correctly. You know, if you used correctly, the ring can be cool. The problem is the ring is misused, and something is not cool, you know? So what else is there? There's thousands, there's millions, there's billions of things that are out of tune, out of place, don't belong. And all of this leaves a lot of room for error. I know what people did. They did a buyout. They created news. Flash flooding happened. They created some type of a news. They saw your reaction. They saw your opinion. They knew exactly what you were thinking. They knew exactly what you were perceiving. They knew exactly what you did. And now they want to go against you. They want to adapt to you. They want to do the opposite to you. Yet, they don't know how you're influenced. They don't know how you're affected. They don't know the elements to the story. They don't know what is what. They don't even know if something is you. So, good Marley. A lot of misjudging occurs. Lie reactions, lie opinions occur. Problems follow and persist, in other words. Domino effect of nonsense. Somebody's misjudging something or someone, something else is misjudging, something else is misjudging, something else is misjudging. Somebody's aware of somebody a day, a week, a month, a year, finds that correct moment, correct timing, decides to do something on something or someone. What are they deciding to do? Go against? Why? Something is a lie reaction, lie opinion, nothing to do with the answers. Something is in this timeline, 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 something is in this perspective, effect, influence, brainwashing, and something is in another, and yet this person not understanding this judges this person or misjudges this person. Is that normal? Is that the example that we want to set? Is that how something will be? That's a temporary reality. Yet the person is normal of what they're doing because that's what mindset that they're in. So, there's obviously a better process, a better knowing, a better understanding, better perception to everything. Yet, some people, what they're doing is they're realistically going against themselves without understanding who they are and then going against something or someone else. You know how many violations occurred on me? Over 10,000 at the least. At the least. This is just with cussing. Over 100,000, possibly more. On puzzles. You know how many times people made unpuzzled decisions on me? Nothing to do with decision at all. You know how many 100,000 decisions they made on me that was wrong? Plus, and how many 100,000 decisions something else happened? You know how many hundreds of thousands of me and somebody else and some. You know how many hundreds and millions of hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of trillions of nonsense that there was? Is this normal? Do people ever stop and think that all of this is a misspent of time? That you guys are spending your time and energy on a lot of things that have nothing to do with reality? Yet you're not only thinking something, you're not only believing something, you're not only visioning something, you're growing this. You're creating this. People are creating a lot of problems. and people are being blamed when they're not supposed to be blamed. Yet some people are saying, okay, well, you blame me, so I'm going to blame you. This is a de-evolutionary way of thinking, you know? Somebody did two, they ever heard the expression, two wrongs don't make a quote unquote right? Well, you know why somebody said that? Because somebody understood that just because you're wrong and just because you're wrong doesn't equal anything will be solved. Nothing gets solved this particular process, this particular doing, this particular idea, this particular thought. Nothing. Nothing is solved. Is that a good thing that nothing is solved because something is wrong? Yeah, that equals that's not the answer. That hints people that, hey, you know what? This is not the answer. This has nothing to do with what the answer is. So obviously, don't do. That's all that signifies. You know, if something is wrong, that equals refrain from doing. What else do people think wrong was? Wrong is something that is wrong, therefore refrain from doing. That's all that signifies. Do people think that was something else? Oh, something is wrong. Let's make this a custom too, so we could infect these people to make wrong, and then we could have upper hand and control and limit them and blah, 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 pss, 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 pss. Well, obviously that's wrong too. Will anything ever work that particular doing, that particular process? No. That's why there's a mess today. All the wrongs added on. You know, you had this wrong, 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 you had this wrong. Too many wrongs. And yet I'm talking about something that was wrong. I'm not talking about something that was correct, that some people claimed or said or brainwashed somebody to think was wrong. No, I'm talking about something that was realistically wrong and the definition of what wrong was, and therefore that is what is wrong, you know? Not something that you manipulate and deceive and cheat and form and do this and do that and then make something wrong. You know, that's not what wrong is. So some people don't know the definition of what is true or what is false, what is wrong, what is correct. And yet they go around making choices and decisions and even telling other people what to do or what to refrain from doing. You know, somebody got something backwards. Yet those very same people may also be brainwashed of what they're doing and telling other people what to do. And those very same people also may be needing healing themselves. Remember, this brainwashing thing, at one point of time, I was brainwashed too. Very, very brainwashed. Even at this moment of time, I'm brainwashed. When people think that they're not brainwashed, think again. There's a lot of numerous doings that people are brainwashed of what they're doing. Nothing to do with reality. Okay? So, what is the entire point of this? Well, the entire point of this is to realistically fix, correct, restore, repair, fix, and for something to be straightened out, and for the truth to be understood, and that everything change according to what is true. That is the entire point, or the entire understanding, or the entire idea. So, realistically, the problem is not the truth that people may make you believe that truth is the problem. The problem is lack of knowledge and something that is false that is realistically going against what is truth. That is the problem. So, is something supposed to make sense and continue to make sense? Yes. When people are going against something and expecting something to work, how can that ever be? They can't be. They can only be with forceful acts and damages and temporariness. Yet some people make me or something or someone believe that that is supposedly true. And yet there's people that are duped, and there are people that obviously are not duped. Yet no one is supposed to be duped. No one is supposed to be duped. You know? Why are people duped? Well, you have a lot of inherited messes, you know? You have the phenomena occurring. So realistically, what needs to occur is everything that's ever been done on the face of this earth and has moved forward, and realistically has moved backwards, given the illusion that something is moving forward. Wherever direction anything has gone, how to revert everything, you know, unnaturally and naturally. That's realistically the question. So doing so, numerous truths, many sense will be preserved for then everything else to be fixed, corrected, restored, and so everything else can be preserved on that, corrected, restored, fixed, preserved on that, corrected, fixed, restored, until something then is how something is supposed to be or was supposed to be, to then be able to go from one stage of something that was less than to something how something is, to then how something is supposed to be, to then how something is supposed to be grown thereafter of how something is supposed to be. In other words, I heard some nonsense at the moment of time, to do with they're being allowed to say what they're saying and they're brainwashed to say what they're saying. My understanding. I don't know why some people are doing this. Instead of me thinking and solving something because I am, and something has already realistically been solved for me to say something, somebody's played an extra card. I think this happened to the entire midst, and something was wrong, something was off. There was no need for people to do that, in other words. And so, in other words, something is in this bubble layer. Getting out of that bubble layer to then get out of another bubble to get another bubble is similar to that. However, not realistically a bubble. However, something, whether predicaments, voids, processes, doings, something is something else instead of how something is supposed to be. So how to revert that and then revert something else and then revert something else until everything is original, how everything is supposed to be. Is that normal? Everybody must know what normal is. If people don't know what normal is, they'll never make correct choices or decisions. If one person is making a wrong choice, wrong decision, well, hey, at least the other person knows what the normal is. At least they can preserve what is true and they won't make a wrong choice, wrong decision. So, in terms of understanding, in terms of attaining knowledge, is the answer. Is the answer, realistically. People may say, oh, no, people being less than the answer is the answer. However, they're not understanding that everything is similar to oxygen, everything is similar to water in terms of everything and everyone has the potential of being the answer. And so everything less than may be the issue. And so, how is everything and everyone going to return back to the answer? Well, everything and everyone has to, revert everything and everything they've ever done. So everything else can realistically be. You understand all this, then you understand this of what I'm mentioning. No one's telling me what to say or what to do. I'm just connecting the dots similarly naturally to me continuing and persisting. So there's a there's numerous matter here on this earth. Yet how is all matter going to be reverted to back to original? Is realistically the question. Doing so is the answer. People may say, oh, there's population control. Oh, excuse me. There's population issue. Well, we all know that there's no population issue. We all know that the real issue is lack of balance, void situation, wrong math, wrong measurements, wrong timing of something, and many numerous other elements that I've mentioned, and more. The everlasting direction is the fact that the more beings that are saved, the more long life will realistically be. The more life forms that are saved, the more life forms that are preserved, the more longer and everlasting and truth will be on the face of this earth. No one ever thought that. No one ever thought that saving life, preserving everything to do with life realistically is the answer for our grand mystery of what the problem is. And so I had to reach this idea, I had to reach this perception. I surpassed many limits. And I did so correctly too. Could I have done much more correctly? Yeah. The influences and the effects that people gave people and made them, be fake was also the issue, I could have passed many things. I could have done so very, very easily too. I chose to fail instead. So I can then people can realize why. Why would you choose to fail? Well, because why should you pass fakely? I'm not talking about any other pass in terms of passing myself here and now. I'm not talking about anything else. Anything else, generally, everybody be passing correctly, understandingly. Understanding true knowledge, something being glued in the person, then allowing that to sink in, that gluing correctly or quote unquote sticking correctly, then etc. 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 So the answer is to attain knowledge. Okay, the answer is to attain true knowledge. The first order of business, there's many first steps, depending on how everything is, there's many first steps. However, there's a first step of stopping physical emotional harm, there's a first step of getting out of predicaments, there's a first step of attaining true knowledge. And so there's numerous first steps. First step is for truth to be in positions of all forms of power, to preserve everything. There's a wide variety of first steps, numerous. And so to understand the first steps of everything, to be able to, you wake up in the morning, you go in balance within yourself as a first step. Putting on a time schedule is a second step. Waking up and doing a breathing exercise, or before sleeping doing breathing exercise or drinking water, is the first step. There's numerous first steps. Yet the first step known. Okay, I just felt a glimpse of something. Has nothing to do with what I'm doing. Another virus story. I'm doing everything in terms of All that is true. I'm not doing anything for because of anything that is less than. Anything that is less than is changing and being true. That makes sense. Anything else doesn't make sense. Don't take anything personal. Understand? So there are numerous first steps. In terms of what people are thinking about, in terms of what people are doing, in terms of what people have done, does all that have anything to do with reality of what reality realistically is? Or is something less than of what reality is? I don't know what people are believing. I think whatever they're believing, they're possibly making a choice or a decision on their belief. The only problem is whatever they're believing has nothing to do with reality. And yet their choice and decision also has nothing to do with reality also. And so to understand the first step of everything and to make absolute on each given element is the answer. There's a first step to everything, no matter what anybody's doing. So everything in terms of the most first step and the absolute of the answer in terms of the first step of whatever they're doing is the answer. Yet something has to persist somewhere to this for time, all, all the way until something is glued, similar to the foundation, similar to something being true. Then, second step. And the second step is again a list of steps. Third step, once that is fulfilled. I'm mentioning this to those whom are ready. I'm not mentioning this to those whom are lagging behind because they have a lot to go. And those people that are also lagging behind, may make sense of what I'm saying. They may also incorporate that, and something may make sense because they shouldn't be lagging behind. I myself am lagging behind, yet I know so much knowledge. Why? Because I'm too busy doing all of this every single day. To counterbalance what I'm doing in terms of where I need to be is realistically the answer to me. So there's some type of a virus group, another virus story. Here, this is again. These virus groups are violators. Their perception, their perspective is skewed. They're possibly disregarding elements, not knowing what the truth is, and possibly creating something that is false. So I think this is personal issues. I think this is a continuation of some type of a wrong nonsense. There's a continuation of some type of nonsense versus something that is realistically true. And the nonsense is getting blocking the correct transition, the correct manifestation of reality. Okay? So all this is part of a weird idea, entertaining and dwelling with nonsense and lack of knowledge of what some people are doing. Nothing to do with reality, nothing to do with what the truth is. Therefore, it should not even be with my life, with my book, with my anything. Does that make sense? No. Everything is supposed to make sense. Yeah, we have something that doesn't make sense. So is that normal? No, that's not normal. So what needs to happen is something needs to be changed and rearranged so everything can be a puzzle to everything. So everything can make sense. That making sense, another thing, another makes sense. That making sense, also something else makes sense, and so on. That not being sense, the other not make being sense either, you know, is an issue. So obviously the point is so there won't be any issues. If there's something wrong, the point is to change something that is wrong. So notice how something occurred where I mentioned something and a thought was born. Notice how that made sense, and I can agree. However, then somebody is linking with something else that didn't see the difference of something, that doesn't know the difference of something, and something else that doesn't make sense, where some people are saying, "Look, that made sense too." The comparing, where something realistically didn't make sense versus something that did, and maybe a mix too. Okay, there's a mix of that, where you realistically don't know where something would have gone. You have to admit that. You have to understand that to be true. Disregarding that and saying, "Oh no, I'm just going to disregard those elements," you tend to make limited decisions thereafter. Okay, versus something where someone says, "Hey, you know what? That is an element. I'm going to take that. I'm going to incorporate that. And I'm not going to limit that. I'm going to do something else." And then there won't be limits anymore. Something will be flowing, similar to everything I've been doing. Some people think they understand everything because something is only understood with 5 elements, 10 elements. You're not understanding everything with the totality of everything. The correct understanding, realistically, is to understand everything, with everything, with the totality of everything. This is true. The fact that if you're true and you understand what the truth is, versus something that is less true, something less true definitely has to consider much more elements versus something that is true. Because the person that is true has already considered so many elements versus the person that's lies that didn't consider anything. Somebody has this backwards, possibly. They're misunderstanding this, possibly. They're not understanding what the truth is. They disregard 10,000 elements, possibly, being the lies, versus the truth that realistically considers all the elements And therefore, I mentioned the answers in terms of what the answers are. Somebody's mixing this possibly. Somebody's got this backwards possibly. Something is off here, from my understanding. Okay, remember, if anything is blocked from reaching where the answers are supposed to reach, everything has to be abundantly known so no one's doing any form of funny business. If the very same thing I say, some people go with the very same thing I say so no one will notice what is being spoken about. That's called the obvious. I say there's no funny business, abundantly known. Somebody does a funny business, possibly. If so, those groups shouldn't have any form of power. What would be the point of that person or that person or that person having any form of power when something realistically makes no sense for them to have power? What would it be like if somebody else also and somebody else also, you know? That's the entire point that nothing will go anywhere. You know? Nothing will be the way something is supposed to be. What would be the point of that if there's no point to that? So remember, anything that's without a point, there's no point of doing. There's without a purpose. Is realistically without a purpose when there's no point. And I had OMG at the moment of time. So realistically, everything has to be with a purpose of what everybody's doing. If there's no purpose, I had OMG like about like possibly 5, 10 times, maybe more, throughout the entire day. That's good. The way I understood this was validations, was flow of everything that I'm understanding. So with this information, people can start making much more better choices, decisions that they've ever been making in their entire lives. Doing so will ensure success and will ensure realistically preserving something. While I'm mentioning this, I'm also remembering my dreams or something that I saw. I think people choosing a wide variety of anything, whatever they're choosing, and then give me an impression that something is supposedly true, or why something is in a particular process, doesn't make sense to me in terms of some type of limit that some people are trying to. Some people rather be limited than something else, whatever that something else may be. That's good. However, why are people fooling themselves? I just don't. I just can't understand that fact. Limiting yourself is also a problem too. Limiting themselves, another person limiting themselves, another person limiting themselves. All this is problems instead of solving the problem. There's a scenario. People can stop something. They know what the scenario is, yet they wait around for something or someone else to do something. Can you imagine that? Then they want to claim that something or someone else is wrong. Somebody's created a weird scenario, creating a weird scenario, and some people, what they did create the scenario. I think this was a scenario to limit, control something or someone, to make people believe that they're wrong. However, who's realistically wrong? Everything on this earth is realistically what is correct, what is wrong, what is false, what is true, and yet people are not making sense and expecting sense from people. So that's also an issue too. Yet some people, you know what they're doing? I think they're trying to retain answers. I think they're trying to retain answers to then be able to adapt, do opposite, or change something according to the answers. So all these groups together, working together, all in on, are doing this every single day. They're not making a lot of sense. Okay, every day they're having a wrong effect. Every single day, wrong effect. Huge wrong effects every single day. They're not satisfied with themselves. They're playing a game on themselves. Realistically, is what the occurrence is. Okay, they're not satisfied with themselves, and they're taking their personal issues or anger on something or someone else, thinking that they're somehow correct. This is the lack of knowledge these people have. A person with true knowledge doesn't do that type of stuff. Don't. You don't entertain and dwell on nonsense. No one does. That is true. That's beyond the rational thinking of something or someone. Anybody that says, "Oh yeah, I'm true and I entertain and dwell on nonsense," well, you didn't understand what the truth was. I'm sorry to burst your bubbles. Bringing something to awareness, though, however, is a different story. Entertaining and dwelling and thinking and dwelling in this type of mentality and creating something and having a nonsense curiosity and what is this? What is this? You're never going to understand. You're never going to know. You're never going to understand. You're never going to know. Whatever you understand, whatever you will know, will be less than of what is true. You will never understand what you guys are doing is you guys are feeding a lot of voids and feeding a lot of nonsense. And some people are saying, well, if we don't do that, if we didn't do this, then this would have been. This would be. Again, entertaining and dwelling with nonsense. Because nothing will be. Yet people entertaining and dwelling in this nonsense behavior of what they're doing is realistically creating the very same thing they don't want to be. That's the phenomenon. Where they understand that, where they realize that, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe no. So I suggest people revert any form of corruption of creation, vision, false self thought, false self vision, wherever anything may be, doesn't matter. If something is not with the true direction, all has to change. Yet this is what the reality is calling for: correct change. Once the answers are known, have to be applied. There's nothing else. So who changes? Well, obviously, I've mentioned this before. The least trusted beginning and the most trusted, if obviously the most trusted needs to change, will change. And be aware of the fact that the most trusted is not mislabeled, and the least trusted is also not mislabeled. The point is everything to realistically be, realistically work, realistically something or someone changing. Some people may say, "Oh, is that why this person is this? Is this why the person is this?" No, everything is a lie. What is true is the fact that I'm going through an enlightenment process, and doing so, all these things occur, and I'm getting out of my predicaments while all these things are still ongoing. And so everything else is realistically false. Is not the answer. People saying, "Oh, is it because of that? Is it because of that? Is it because of?" Nothing is anything because you think because of. Everything realistically is, with me, everything is realistically true in terms of what I believe, what I understand to be true, in terms of what something really is, not something that you think something is. In other words, that's the good thing. I'm not trying to put on an act. I'm not trying to put on a show. I'm realistically telling you, based with my perception, with my perspective of what something realistically is. Even though different types of groups try to make me or something or someone, and people are switching visions or something while I'm trying to explain something, trying to understand what I'm trying to refer to. What I'm referring to is any form of nonsense that is false. So this is also another trick some people are using. While I'm explaining something, while something is natural, somebody's trying to mix visions or thoughts. Always be aware of this, whom that may be, in terms of mixing some type of vision or some type of thought. Try and change the narrative, possibly. Try and change the story. Versus what the answer is. There's a belief game going on. With that said, understand the fact that realistically, what is true, regardless of what you believe, is everything that has to do with 1 plus 1 equaling 2. Okay? With 1 plus 1 equaling 2, what occurs is something realistically that is the answer. And everybody with attaining knowledge, whatever they do, all has to do with the answer. One thing equaling the answer, another thing equaling the answer, another answer are hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of answers. And what tends to occur? Well, everything starts working correctly, the way something is supposed to work correctly. So, similar to everybody and everything going in one particular place or time, whatever anything or anyone is doing is the answer of whatever anything is doing. Realistically, what needs to be, what needed to be thousands, hundreds and thousands, and millions of years ago. You know how the planet was supposed to be a billion years ahead? Well, I think once people have all predicaments and do the steps in terms of the elements where everything belongs, there will be a possibility of what and where everything needs to revert to. Okay? There's a lot of groups, from my understanding, that continuously adapting. However, are people seeing their flaws of what they're adapting to? Because from a long time ago to today, a bunch of people fed a bunch of nonsense and tried to blame and literally couldn't believe that something was not failing. And so they even created people to fail. You know, some people manipulated people to fail. All that has to be reverted. All that has to be known in terms of who's blaming, who's making me fail, who wants to make me fail, who's entertaining and dwelling in all this, who's creating the problems, realistically. What is this twisted, illogical nonsense, entertaining and dwelling of nonsense that people are doing? Should I simply just let go and everybody fails? That is how some people made something be long time ago. And from a long time ago, I haven't done that. I haven't let go. Jack. Wow. So many people gave me and somebody else many different perceptions and perspectives of a lot of lies and thought I believed a lot of lies of whatever they uh, gave me. I think they were convinced that I believed the lies that they told me or they showed me or gave me impressions of. Yet I didn't. And yet those people then made different types of choices and decisions, assumingly. Okay? Assumingly. Keyword. Thinking that somehow I believed the lies. And compared something or someone else. And compared something or someone else. Yet realistically, who I am and who someone else is has nothing to do with reality. My thought patterns, my brain, my everything is entirely different versus something or someone else. Many people, you know what I did? I did a favor for people in terms of being in the middle of something where, of course, something didn't resonate with me. Yet because I was taking on different types of roles, I literally failed doing so. Okay? People may say, why? Well, did you understand the story? Did you understand the elements of the entirety of everything? This is also important for me not to mention everything too, to be honest with you, not in this particular moment of time. Because somebody is obviously trying to adapt to something. The answer will be less than of what is true. What are some people doing? You know? Do they realize that something is abnormal of what they're doing? And only, you know, if many people didn't know about many things, would they be partaking in many things that they had no idea about? That's also a question too. I don't think so. I don't think so. I know what's me, what's not me. I know somebody was thinking something similar. That's why I did them a favor. A lot of people got in people's lives, did some type of manipulation, sophisticatedly did so, possibly retaining answers and adapted to a wide variety of doings, and made people feel sorry for them, similar to what I was mentioning, that some type of issue would have occurred on, to also for also people to fail too. Remember, everything I'm saying is realistically the answer of what realistically occurred on me and what realistically I was dealing with. Disregarding the elements doesn't realistically work. How does that work? How can people disregard the elements and expect different results? People may say, oh, okay, well, something is large, something is small. something is in between, large and small. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. I'm talking about with numbers. There's numerous groups of people, there's less groups of people. There's one individual, there's 10 individuals. What's the point I'm trying to make? Besides advantages and disadvantages. People have to realize that if everybody is the answer, doesn't matter if you're one or if you're 10 or if you're a million. What matters is everything is flowing. So the reality is not how the reality is supposed to be. I would suggest people not adding on to more of a mess. I would suggest people going in tune with reality and not causing issues on people's lives. And then something occurs where then somebody's saying, oh, look, something is stemming from the person. Somebody's always continuously trying to prove something. Somebody's continuously always doing some type of weird test. Instead of understanding what the truth is, realistically, somebody's delaying something similar to this. There may be some type of delay going on. And the delay may be the issue. And somebody or someone is cussing and wants something or someone to fail, possibly. I heard this about 5 times now. These are virus groups to me. They're egotistical. These groups, if anybody's hearing this, if anybody's going through this, just know that those groups are virus groups or people. They're not only less than what is true, however, they're much less than what is true. Okay? So people all over the place and mixed here and there, just know that that's not you. There may be something or someone else that influenced you to be similar to that, and with correct timing, that will go away. There's people that are taking this seriously, understanding everything I'm saying, and there's people that think this is a joke or something. And maybe there's people that are valuing something because they're seeing something, they understood something, and there's people that are not valuing something at all, and they're not understanding anything. And these curses may be linked to something else. So I think some people are failing, whatever they're doing, and they're possibly humiliating themselves or something similar to that may be occurring. In terms of what is that about, I don't know. It doesn't resonate with me. I can't find anything that resonates with me to do with this. I'm trying to understand something, in terms of what that may be. It just doesn't make sense. I'm trying to make sense of that too. Even if something is nonsense, I try to make sense of that. However, with elements, I can't make sense of something that is false. I can't force something to be, of how something isn't. I don't do that. Yet somebody possibly does that then. Somebody forces something. Yet they're cussing at themselves, possibly, most likely. A lot of people are trying to convince people that they're supposedly correct. You know how wrong those groups are? And nothing to do with what is true? Very wrong. I would say something around something being 0% true. Remember, I'm not counting the mixes, I'm not counting the reflection, I'm not counting the wrong effects that people saw. Because why? Because if they didn't do that wrongly, would that be? No. So why should I count something that is lies? I shouldn't count something that is lies. Doesn't make sense. Speaking of not making sense, why should anybody count anything that is lies? That's also abnormal. So I think there's a lot of misjudging going on too. I believe a lot of people saw signs and their signs were manipulated and nothing to do with reality. In other words, something that they created and they saw of themselves or their reflections. And they said, oh, look, that's a sign, that's a sign, that's a sign. We can do this, we can do this, we can do this. You know what they did? Wrong, wrong, wrong. Choices, wrong decisions the entire time. The entire time they made wrong choices, wrong decisions. They're famous for making the worst wrong choices, wrong decisions. Okay? Famous for making their wrong choices, wrong decisions. Be aware of any given moment, people are not flipping the script, trying to compare, trying to say this is true, this is false, this is correct, this is they probably most likely got the story wrong. You know what is most true, what is most correct? People calling and asking questions and solving something. Being honest. That is what is true. That is what is correct. With this said, to be continued.